A dirty, homeless girl crashes a billionaire's wedding and stops it with just 6 seconds of audio. In a church full of wealth, power, and perfect smiles, one brave child risks everything to expose a betrayal no one saw coming. What happens next will shatter reputations, cancel a dream wedding, and reveal the shocking truth behind a perfect love story. The cathedral was filled with white roses and soft piano music. Hundreds of guests sat in polished pews, wearing their finest clothes and brightest smiles. At the altar, Julian Cross stood in his tailored navy suit, waiting for his bride. He looked confident, successful, and completely unaware of the disaster about to unfold. Elena Hartley walked down the aisle in a dress that cost more than most people earned in a year. Her smile was perfect. Her makeup was flawless. Everything about this moment screamed perfection, but it was all built on lies. The pastor began the ceremony. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today." That's when the church doors slammed open. A small figure stumbled into the cathedral. The guests gasped. The piano stopped. All eyes turned to the tiny girl standing in the doorway, breathing hard, covered in dirt. Amara was 8 years old. Her clothes were torn and stained. Her hair was tangled. Her face was streaked with grime and tears. In her small hands she clutched an old smartphone like it was the most precious thing in the world. "Stop." Amara's voice was thin but clear. "Please stop. She's lying to you." Security guards moved toward her immediately, but Julian held up his hand. Something in the child's desperate eyes made him pause. "Wait," Julian said. He stepped away from Elena, moving down the aisle toward the girl. "What are you talking about?" Amara's whole body shook. She had practiced this moment in her head 1,000 times, but now that it was real, fear threatened to silence her. She thought about Miss Natasha, the kind woman who had given her food and hope when she had nothing. She thought about how this man deserved to know the truth. "I have proof," Amara said, holding up the phone. "I recorded her. 2 weeks ago. She was talking to her friend. She said terrible things about you." Elena's perfect smile cracked. "Julian, this is absurd. Security, remove this child immediately." "No." Julian's voice was firm. He knelt in front of Amara, his expensive suit touching the dirty cathedral floor. "What's your name?" "Amara." "Amara, I'm listening. What did you hear?" The little girl's fingers trembled as she pressed play on the phone. In the silent cathedral, Elena's voice rang out crystal clear. "Julian is so easy to manipulate. Once I'm married, I'll have access to everything. That assistant he had, Natasha? I got rid of her. She was getting too close. 6 seconds. That's all it took. 6 seconds of audio that destroyed an entire wedding." The recording continued. "6 months after the wedding, I'll divorce him and take half. He'll never see it coming. Men like him are so desperate for someone to love them, they'll believe anything." The cathedral erupted in whispers and gasps. Julian stood slowly, his face drained of color. He turned to Elena, and the look in his eyes was something between heartbreak and rage. "Julian, I can explain," Elena said, but her voice had lost its sweetness. Now it sounded panicked and sharp. "Explain what?" Julian's words were quiet, controlled. "Explain how you plan to use me? Explain how you got rid of Natasha? Explain which part of that recording wasn't real." Elena's mask finally shattered. Her beautiful face twisted with anger. "You were supposed to be easy. You were supposed to just sign the papers and let me live the life I deserve. But you had to develop feelings. You had to actually care." "Get out," Julian said. "Get out of this church. Get out of my life. If you're not gone in 60 seconds, I'm calling the police for fraud and extortion." Elena gathered her expensive dress and ran. Her heels clicked against the marble floor as she fled, and Julian knew he would never see her again. The guests sat in stunned silence. The pastor looked completely lost. The wedding that was supposed to be Julian's happiest day had become his biggest humiliation, but somehow he felt relieved. The truth hurt, but lies would have destroyed him. Julian turned back to Amara. The little girl was crying now, her small body shaking with sobs. Hey, Julian said gently, kneeling again. "You're not in trouble. You saved me. Do you understand? You saved me from making the biggest mistake of my life." "I was scared you wouldn't believe me," Amara whispered. "I believe you. Where are your parents? We need to get you home." Amara's tears fell harder. "I don't have a home. My grandma died 3 months ago. I've been living on the streets." Julian's heart broke. This brave little girl, who had crashed his wedding to save him from a con artist, had been surviving alone on the streets. She was 8 years old. "Where did you get this recording?" Julian asked softly. I heard her at a cafe. She was sitting outside, talking loud like she didn't care who heard. I had found this phone in a trash can a few days before. It still worked. So I recorded her. I tried to find you before the wedding, but the security at your building wouldn't let me in. So I waited. I knew I had to stop the wedding. Julian felt something shift inside his chest. This child had more courage than most adults he knew. You mentioned someone named Natasha, Julian said carefully. How do you know that name? Amara's face brightened for the first time. Miss Natasha is an angel. She works at the diner on 5th Street. When I was hungry and scared, she gave me food. She never asked for anything back. She just smiled and said everyone deserves kindness. She told me to never give up hope even when things are hard. She's the best person I know. Julian closed his eyes. Natasha Pierce. His former assistant. The woman he had let Elena push out of his life. The woman he had been too blind to see clearly. She had been struggling, working at a diner, and still finding ways to be kind to homeless children. What had he done? Amara, Julian said, making a decision that would change everything. I want to help you. I want to make sure you're safe and taken care of. Will you let me do that? The little girl looked at him with wide, hopeful eyes. In her short life, people had mostly disappointed her. But something in this man's face told her he meant what he said. Yes, Amara said. Please. I'll be so grateful. I promise I'll be good. You're already good, Julian said. You're better than good. You're brave and honest and kind. Come on. Let's get you somewhere warm. He stood and addressed his stunned guests. The wedding is cancelled, obviously. Thank you all for coming. Please enjoy the reception dinner anyway. It's all paid for. Then Julian Cross, Billionaire CO, took the hand of a homeless 8-year-old girl and walked out of the cathedral. His life as he knew it was over, but somehow he felt like it was just beginning. Have you ever met someone whose courage changed your entire life? Someone so small but so brave that they turned your world upside down in the best way? If this story is touching your heart, please subscribe and comment below with your thoughts. I want to hear about the unexpected heroes in your life. Your story might inspire someone else today. 6 months earlier, Julian Cross had been a different man. He had been successful, yes, but he had also been happy in a way that had nothing to do with money. Natasha Pierce had been his executive assistant for 2 years. Every morning she arrived at the office in bright colors: red blazers, blue dresses, green blouses. She said life was too short for boring clothes. She moved through the office like sunshine, making everyone's day a little better. But it was more than her brightness that drew Julian to her. It was her sharp mind, her quick wit, her ability to solve problems before he even knew they existed. She anticipated his needs, challenged his ideas, and made him laugh during 14-hour workdays. He had never crossed the line. He was her boss. She was his employee. There were rules, boundaries, professional standards. But the feelings were there, growing stronger every day until walking into the office felt like coming home. Natasha felt it too, though she never said so. She saw the way Julian's eyes lingered on her a moment too long. She noticed how he always made sure she ate lunch, how he remembered small details about her life, how he smiled differently when she walked into a room. But she also knew her place. She was an assistant from a working-class family in Brooklyn. He was a billionaire from old money. The gap between them seemed impossible to cross. Then Elena Hartley appeared. She came to a charity gala as someone's date, but the moment she saw Julian, she set her sights on him. Elena was beautiful in a cold, calculated way. She knew exactly what to wear, what to say, how to position herself to seem perfect. She studied Julian like he was a business deal. She learned his schedule, his interests, his weaknesses. And she noticed the one thing that stood between her and unlimited wealth: Natasha Pierce. The plan was subtle at first. Elena started visiting the office, bringing Julian lunch, scheduling appointments that conflicted with important meetings that Natasha had arranged. She asked questions designed to make Natasha look incompetent. Oh, Natasha didn't tell you about the dinner with the investors? How strange. I could have sworn you mentioned it to her, Julian. Natasha ordered the wrong files for the presentation? That must have been so embarrassing for you. Small cuts, carefully placed, designed to create doubt. Then Elena made her big move. She hacked into Natasha's work email using a password she had seen Natasha type in. She sent messages from Natasha's account to Julian's competitors, offering to sell confidential information for money. When Julian discovered the emails, he was devastated. He confronted Natasha in his office, his face hard with betrayal. I trusted you, Julian said, and the pain in his voice cut deeper than any anger could have. I didn't send those emails, Natasha said, her voice shaking. Julian, I swear to you someone is setting me up. Your email. Your password. Your computer. The messages came from your account. Someone must have hacked it. Please, you know me. You know I would never betray you. But Elena had done her job too well. She had planted doubt, created evidence, and positioned herself as the only person Julian could trust. When he looked at Natasha now, he saw a stranger. I'm going to have to let you go, Julian said, and the words destroyed both of them. I can't keep you on staff after this. I'm not pressing charges because I don't want a public scandal, but you need to leave. Today. Natasha felt her world collapse. She had done nothing wrong, but she had no way to prove it. The evidence was against her. Julian's trust was gone. I understand, Natasha said quietly, gathering what dignity she had left. But Julian, please be careful. Someone who would do this to me would do it to you too. Please watch your back. Just go, Natasha. She left the office that day in a bright green dress that suddenly felt too cheerful for the moment. She packed her desk, said goodbye to confused co-workers, and walked out of the building that had been her second home for 2 years. Outside, Elena was waiting by the entrance, a small smile on her perfect lips. I hope you find another job soon, Elena said sweetly, but her eyes were cold. I'm sure there are plenty of companies that would love an assistant with your experience. Natasha said nothing. She walked past Elena with her head high, refusing to let the other woman see her cry. But once she turned the corner, the tears came. She had lost her job, her financial security, and the man she secretly loved. And the worst part was he believed she had betrayed him. The weeks that followed were brutal. Natasha's mother was sick with cancer, requiring expensive treatments. The medical bills piled up faster than Natasha could count. She applied for jobs everywhere, but word had somehow spread about the scandal at Julian Cross's company. No one would hire her. She drained her savings. She sold most of her belongings. She moved from her nice apartment to a tiny studio in a rough neighborhood. Finally, desperate, she took a job as a waitress at a diner on 5th Street. The pay was minimum wage. The hours were brutal. But it was honest work and she was grateful to have it. She took a second job cleaning office buildings at night. She barely slept. Her bright dresses hung in her closet, unworn, because she couldn't afford to dry clean them anymore. She wore the diner's red uniform during the day and cleaning company's navy jumpsuit at night. Her mother's condition worsened. The treatments weren't working. Natasha held her mother's hand in the hospital and tried to stay strong, but inside she was breaking. 3 months after losing her job, Natasha's mother passed away peacefully in her sleep. Natasha was alone in the world, working 2 jobs just to keep a roof over her head, living in a neighborhood where she didn't feel safe, grieving the loss of her mother and the life she used to have. But she never lost her kindness. When she found Amara behind the diner one cold evening, dirty and scared and alone, Natasha didn't hesitate. She brought the little girl food from her own meager dinner. She sat with her, talked to her, gave her hope. Everyone deserves kindness, Natasha told Amara, her smile genuine despite her exhaustion. Never give up hope even when things are hard. Better days are coming. I promise. Amara looked at this tired woman in a red uniform and she saw an angel. Meanwhile, Julian Cross was building his new life with Elena. She was everything Natasha wasn't. Sophisticated, connected, perfectly polished. She never challenged him. She always agreed. She made him feel like the smartest man in the world. But sometimes, late at night, Julian would remember the way Natasha laughed. He would remember her bright dresses and her sharp observations and the feeling he got when she walked into a room. He would wonder if he had made a mistake, if he had been too quick to judge, if maybe she had been telling the truth. Then Elena would appear with wine and sympathy, and he would push the doubts away. Natasha had betrayed him. The evidence was clear. He needed to move on. 6 months after firing Natasha, Julian proposed to Elena. She said yes with tears that looked genuine. They planned a huge wedding at the cathedral. Everything was perfect. Everything was a lie. And Julian had no idea that the woman he had thrown away was barely surviving across town, still wearing bright red and still believing in kindness, even though the world had given her every reason to give up. Amara was 8 years old when her world ended. Her grandmother had raised her since she was a baby. Her mother had disappeared before Amara could even remember her face. Her father was never in the picture. But Grandma Rose was enough. She was warmth and safety and unconditional love. They lived in a small apartment in Queens. Grandma Rose worked as a seamstress, mending clothes for neighbors and local shops. The money was tight, but they always had enough. Grandma Rose made sure of it. We might not have much, Grandma Rose would say, But we have each other. That's what matters most. She taught Amara to read using old library books. She taught her to be kind, to be brave, to stand up for what's right even when it's scary. She taught her that every person deserves dignity and respect, no matter how rich or poor they are. Then, 3 days after Amara's 8th birthday, Grandma Rose had a stroke. She collapsed while making breakfast. Amara called 911 like Grandma had taught her, but by the time the ambulance arrived, it was too late. Grandma Rose died in the hospital with Amara holding her hand. "Be brave, my sweet girl," those were Grandma's last words. "Be brave and be kind. That's all you need." After that, everything fell apart. Amara had no other family. Social services tried to find her a foster home, but there were too many kids and not enough families. Amara was placed in a group home, but she hated it. The older kids were mean. The staff was overwhelmed. Nobody cared about her the way Grandma Rose had. So Amara ran away. She knew it was dangerous. She knew she was too young to survive on the streets alone. But the group home felt like a prison and Amara couldn't breathe there. At least on the streets she was free. The first week was terrifying. She slept in doorways and parks. She dug through trash cans for food. She learned to avoid the bad people who hung around at night, the ones who looked at her with wrong intentions. She learned which restaurants threw away good food at the end of the night. She learned where the public libraries were, where she could use the bathroom and wash her face and hands. She learned to make herself small and invisible. For 3 months, Amara survived. She was hungry most of the time. She was scared all the time. But she was alive and she told herself that was enough. Then one cold evening in early March, everything changed. Amara was behind the diner on 5th Street, going through the dumpster hoping to find something edible. She was so focused on her search that she didn't hear someone approach. "Hey sweetie, what are you doing back here?" Amara spun around ready to run. But the woman standing there didn't look dangerous. She was wearing a red diner uniform. Her hair was pulled back in a neat ponytail. Her face was kind but tired. "I'm sorry," Amara said quickly. "I'll leave." "Wait," the woman said. "Are you hungry?" Amara hesitated. People didn't usually ask that question unless they wanted something in return. But this woman's eyes were gentle. "Yes," Amara admitted. "Come on. I just finished my shift. Let me make you a sandwich." The woman's name was Natasha. She brought Amara inside through the back door and made her the biggest sandwich Amara had ever seen. Turkey, cheese, lettuce, tomato, and extra pickles. She poured a glass of cold milk and watched Amara eat like she hadn't seen food in days because she hadn't. "What's your name?" Natasha asked. "Amara." "That's a beautiful name. Where are your parents, Amara?" "My grandma died. I don't have anyone else." Natasha's face fell. She knew that pain. She had just lost her own mother. "Are you in the system? Foster care?" "I ran away. I hated it there." Natasha should have called the authorities. That was the right thing to do. But she looked at this tiny girl with scared eyes and dirty clothes, and she remembered what Grandma Rose must have taught her about kindness. "Listen," Natasha said. "I can't take you home. I live in a tiny studio and I barely make rent. But I work here every day. If you come by around closing time, I'll make sure you have dinner. Deal?" Amara's eyes filled with tears. "Really? Really? Everyone deserves kindness, Amara. Never forget that." From that night on, Amara came to the diner every evening. Natasha always had food waiting. Sandwiches, soup, leftover fries, whatever she could manage. They would sit in the back for 20 minutes and Natasha would talk to her about life, about hope, about not giving up. "I know things are hard right now," Natasha would say. "But they won't always be this hard. Better days are coming. You just have to hold on long enough to see them." Amara started to believe her. This woman who wore bright red and smiled even though her own eyes looked sad, she became Amara's hero. She became the reason Amara kept trying. 2 weeks before the wedding, Amara found the phone. She was walking through a park when she saw it lying next to a trash can. Someone had probably dropped it by accident. The screen was cracked, but when Amara pressed the power button, it turned on. The battery was at 15%. Amara had seen kids at the library using phones. She knew how they worked. She turned off everything except the camera and recorder to save battery. She kept the phone hidden in her jacket. A few days later, Amara was sitting outside a fancy cafe, trying to stay warm, when she heard a familiar name. "Natasha was such a problem," a woman's voice said. "But I got rid of her easily. Julian believed everything I told him." Amara looked up. 2 women sat at an outdoor table, drinking wine and laughing. One of them was beautiful, with perfect hair and expensive clothes. Her voice was sharp despite her smile. So you're really going through with the wedding? The friend asked. Of course. Julian is so easy to manipulate. Once I'm married, I'll have access to everything. That assistant he had, Natasha? I got rid of her. She was getting too close. 6 months after the wedding, I'll divorce him and take half. He'll never see it coming. Men like him are so desperate for someone to love them, they'll believe anything. Amara's heart pounded. She pulled out the phone with shaking hands and pressed record. She caught every word. When the women left, Amara sat there staring at the phone. This woman had hurt Miss Natasha. She had lied and manipulated and destroyed a good person's life. And now she was going to hurt someone named Julian too. Amara knew what Grandma Rose would say. Be brave and be kind. Stand up for what's right even when it's scary. She looked up the name Julian Cross at the library. When she saw his photo and the announcement of his upcoming wedding to Elena Hartley, she knew what she had to do. She tried to reach him at his office building, but security wouldn't let a dirty homeless child anywhere near the executive floors. She tried calling the number she found online, but she never got past assistants who didn't believe her story. So Amara waited. She watched the news for information about the wedding. She learned when and where it would be. She planned how she would get inside. The night before the wedding, Amara told Natasha what she was going to do. Tomorrow I'm going to help someone, Amara said. I'm going to stop something bad from happening. Natasha smiled. That's very brave of you. You taught me that everyone deserves kindness. Even rich people who don't know they're being lied to. That's right. What are you planning? I can't tell you yet. But if it works, maybe you'll hear about it. Natasha didn't push. She just hugged Amara tight and said, whatever you do, be safe. You matter to me. Those words gave Amara the courage she needed. The next day she walked to the cathedral in her torn clothes and dirty shoes. She stood outside the huge wooden doors, listening to the ceremony begin. Be brave, she whispered to herself, channeling Grandma Rose. Be kind. Stand up for what's right. Then she pushed open the doors and changed 3 lives forever. The smartphone Amara found was an older model, but it worked perfectly for what she needed. She spent hours at the public library watching videos on how to use it, learning every feature. The battery was dying, but she found a charging cable at the library and kept it alive. She wanted to be ready. She didn't know when or how she would need this phone, but something told her it was important. The cafe where she overheard Elena was called Bistro Lumière, a fancy French place where one meal cost more than Amara used to spend on food in a month. She wasn't there to eat. She was just trying to stay warm on a cold March evening. The outdoor patio was heated with tall gas lamps. Rich people sat at small tables, drinking wine and laughing. Amara sat on a bench across the street, invisible in her dirty coat. That's when she heard the name. Natasha was such a problem. Amara's head snapped up. She knew that name. Miss Natasha, the angel who fed her every night. The woman speaking was stunning. She wore a white designer coat and had perfect blonde hair. Her companion was equally polished, dressed in black with diamond earrings that caught the light. Tell me everything, the friend said, leaning in with a conspiratorial smile. How did you get rid of her? It was easy, Elena said, sipping her wine. I hacked her email and sent messages to Julian's competitors. Made it look like she was selling company secrets. When he found out, he was devastated. He fired her on the spot. But she didn't actually do it? Of course not. She was completely innocent. But Julian believed me over her. That's how you know you've won. When a man trusts you more than the people he's known for years. The friend laughed. You're terrible. I'm practical. Natasha was in my way. She had feelings for Julian, and worse, he had feelings for her. They were too stupid to act on it, but I could see it. The way they looked at each other. If I hadn't stepped in, they probably would have ended up together eventually. And you couldn't have that. Obviously. Julian Cross is worth $3 billion. $3 billion. That kind of money changes everything. I don't care if he's boring or if we have nothing in common. 6 months after the wedding, I'll divorce him and walk away with half. Maybe more if my lawyer is good enough. Amara's hands trembled as she pulled out the phone. She had to record this. She had to. She pressed the record button and held the phone up, pointing it toward the cafe. The women were loud enough that the phone picked up every word clearly. So you're really going through with the wedding? The friend asked. Of course. Julian is so easy to manipulate. Once I'm married, I'll have access to everything. That assistant he had, Natasha? I got rid of her. She was getting too close. 6 months after the wedding, I'll divorce him and take half. He'll never see it coming. Men like him are so desperate for someone to love them, they'll believe anything. Amara recorded for 2 full minutes before the women changed subjects. Her heart pounded so hard she thought it might explode. This woman had destroyed Miss Natasha's life with lies. She had gotten an innocent person fired. And now she was planning to marry some man named Julian just to steal his money. It was wrong. It was cruel. And Amara had proof. She stopped the recording and quickly saved it. The phone's battery was down to 8%. She turned it off completely to preserve what power remained. That night, Amara couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about what she had heard. She needed to find this Julian person and warn him. She needed to tell him about Miss Natasha's innocence. She needed to stop this woman from hurting more people. The next morning, Amara went to the library and used the public computer to search Julian Cross. Articles and photos filled the screen. He was a billionaire CEO, young and successful, known for his charitable work and business success. His company built affordable housing and funded education programs. He looked kind in his photos. He had the sort of face that smiled easily. And then Amara found the wedding announcement: Julian Cross to wed Elena Hartley in a ceremony at St. Catherine's Cathedral on March 25th. March 25th was 2 weeks away. Amara's mind raced. She had 2 weeks to stop this wedding. 2 weeks to save this man from making a terrible mistake. She found the address of Julian's company headquarters. The next day she walked 40 blocks to get there. The building was glass and steel reaching high into the sky. Security guards stood at every entrance. Amara approached the front desk, her dirty clothes drawing stares. "I need to see Julian Cross," she said to the guard. "It's important." The guard looked her up and down. "Do you have an appointment?" "No, but I have information he needs to hear." "Sorry, kid. No appointment, no entry. Move along." "Please, you don't understand. Someone is lying to him. He's about to make a huge mistake." "Look, I'm sure whatever you have to say is very important to you, but Mr. Cross is a busy man. He doesn't have time for walk-ins. Especially not." The guard's eyes traveled over her dirty coat and torn shoes. Amara felt her face burn with shame. She was being judged for being poor, for being homeless. It didn't matter that she was trying to help. All that mattered was how she looked. She tried the employee entrance. A different guard turned her away. She tried calling the office numbers listed online, but she never got past automated menus and dismissive receptionists. "I have proof," Amara told one receptionist. "I have a recording of his fiancée admitting she's using him." "Sure you do, honey. Listen, Mr. Cross gets calls from crazy people all the time. If you have legitimate concerns, write them in a letter and mail it to our office." The receptionist hung up before Amara could respond. For a week, Amara tried everything. She waited outside the building, hoping to catch Julian arriving or leaving. But he was always surrounded by security, moving too fast for her to reach. She wrote a letter, but she had no way to know if it would ever make it to his desk. Time was running out. The wedding was in 7 days. Then 6. Then 5. Amara was sitting behind the diner, eating the sandwich Miss Natasha had made for her, when she realized what she had to do. "I can't reach him before the wedding," Amara said out loud. "So I have to reach him at the wedding." It was terrifying. She would have to crash a fancy event in a cathedral full of rich people. Security would try to throw her out. She might get arrested. But what choice did she have? She couldn't let Miss Natasha's kindness go unnoticed. She couldn't let this Julian person marry a woman who saw him as nothing more than a bank account. She couldn't let evil win when she had the power to stop it. "Be brave," she heard Grandma Rose's voice in her head. "Stand up for what's right even when it's scary." Amara spent the next few days preparing. She memorized the cathedral's address. She planned the fastest route from her sleeping spot to the church. She charged the phone one last time at the library, making sure the recording was still there, still clear. The night before the wedding she couldn't eat. Her stomach was twisted in knots. She lay awake in the doorway where she usually slept, staring at the stars. "Please let this work," she whispered. "Please let him believe me." The next morning, Amara washed her face at a gas station bathroom. She tried to comb her tangled hair with her fingers. She wanted to look as presentable as possible, but there was only so much she could do. She walked to the cathedral, her legs shaking with every step. It was the most beautiful building she had ever seen, all white stone and stained glass. People in expensive clothes climbed the steps, laughing and chatting. Amara waited until the ceremony started. She could hear the piano music from outside. Her hands gripped the phone so tightly her knuckles turned white. Be brave. Be kind. Stand up for what's right. She climbed the steps. Her heart hammered. Her whole body shook. But she didn't stop. She reached the huge wooden doors. Through the small windows she could see the ceremony in progress. The pastor was speaking. Julian stood at the altar. Elena looked like a princess. Amara took one deep breath. Then she pushed open the doors with all her strength, and the loud sound echoed through the cathedral like thunder. Every head turned. Every eye found her. The tiny, dirty girl standing in the doorway holding a phone, ready to destroy a perfect wedding with 6 seconds of truth. "Stop," Amara said, her voice trembling but clear. "Please stop. She's lying to you." The cathedral fell silent after Amara played the recording. 6 seconds had passed, but the audio kept playing, revealing more of Elena's cruel plan. The guests sat frozen, processing what they had just heard. Elena had fled, her designer dress disappearing through the side door. The pastor stood with his mouth open, unsure what to do. Julian felt like his entire world had shifted on its axis. For 6 months he had built a life with Elena. He had believed her smiles, her compliments, her declarations of love. He had pushed away his doubts and dismissed his memories of Natasha because Elena had convinced him the evidence was clear. Now, standing in his navy suit at an altar meant for his wedding, he realized he had been played, manipulated, used. Every moment with Elena had been a performance, and he had been too blind to see it. But that wasn't what hurt most. What destroyed him was the truth about Natasha. She was getting too close, Elena's voice echoed in his memory. "I got rid of her." Natasha had been innocent. Completely innocent. He had fired her, destroyed her career, believed the worst of her, all because of a con artist's lies. The woman who had been his right hand, his friend, the person who made him laugh during impossible days, he had thrown her away without a second thought. And now this little girl, this brave, homeless 8-year-old, had saved him from making an even bigger mistake. Julian knelt in front of Amara again. The guests watched in silence as the billionaire CEO got down on the cathedral floor to speak with a child in torn clothes. "Amara," Julian said gently, "you said you don't have a home. Where have you been sleeping?" "Doorways mostly. Sometimes the park if it's not too cold." Julian's chest tightened. "And you've been doing this for 3 months?" "Yes, sir." "Don't call me sir. Call me Julian." He paused, thinking carefully about his next words. "You saved me today. You risked everything to tell me the truth. You could have stayed hidden, stayed safe, but you didn't. You came here because it was the right thing to do. That takes incredible courage." Amara's eyes filled with tears. "I was so scared you wouldn't believe me." "I believe you. And I'm sorry you had to carry this burden alone." Julian stood and addressed his guests. "I need to take care of this. Please enjoy the reception. All the food and arrangements are already paid for. But I have more important things to handle right now." He offered his hand to Amara. She took it without hesitation, her small fingers disappearing in his larger ones. Together they walked out of the cathedral. Julian's driver waited by a sleek black car, looking confused by the turn of events. "Take us to the Four Seasons," Julian told the driver. "We need to get this young lady cleaned up and fed." At the hotel Julian booked a suite. He called his personal shopper and asked her to bring clothes for an 8-year-old girl. Jeans, shirts, a warm jacket, proper shoes. He specified bright colors, remembering Amara's mention of Natasha's kindness. While they waited he ordered room service. Burgers, fries, chicken nuggets, pasta, salad, fruit, chocolate cake. He didn't know what Amara liked, so he ordered everything. When the food arrived, Amara stared at the cart like she was seeing a miracle. "Go ahead," Julian said. "Eat whatever you want. There's plenty." Amara ate slowly at first like she was afraid the food might disappear. Then hunger took over, and she ate with the desperation of someone who had known too many empty days. Julian watched, his heart breaking with every bite. After she ate, a hotel staff member helped Amara shower and wash her hair. The personal shopper arrived with bags of clothes in greens, blues, and reds. When Amara emerged in clean jeans and a bright blue shirt, she looked like a different child. "Better?" Julian asked. "So much better," Amara said, smiling for the first time. "Thank you. I'm really grateful." "You don't need to thank me. You helped me. Now I'm helping you. That's how it should work." They sat in the suite's living room. Julian had changed out of his wedding suit into casual clothes. For the first time all day he could breathe. "Tell me more about Natasha," Julian said. "You said she works at a diner?" Amara nodded enthusiastically. "Fifth Street Diner. She wears a red uniform. She's there almost every day. She gives me dinner when her shift ends. She's the kindest person I know." Julian's throat felt tight. "What does she talk about?" "She tells me not to give up hope. She says better days are coming. She says everyone deserves kindness, no matter who they are or where they come from. Amara paused. She looks sad sometimes, like something hurt her really bad. But she always smiles anyway. Julian knew exactly what had hurt her. He had. She told me her mom died, Amara continued quietly. She said grief is heavy, but you carry it because you loved someone that much. She said her mom taught her to be kind even when the world is mean. She sounds like an amazing person. She is. She saved my life, kind of. When I was ready to give up, she showed me that good people still exist. Julian made a decision in that moment. He needed to find Natasha. He needed to apologize, to explain, to make things right if that was even possible. But first he needed to make sure Amara was safe. Amara, I want to help you. Not just for today but long term. I want to make sure you have a home, food, school, everything you need. Would that be okay? Amara's eyes went wide. Really? Really? I'm going to talk to some lawyers about adoption. It might take time, but I want to make this official. I want you to be part of my family. For the first time since Grandma Rose died, Amara felt safe. This man, this billionaire who she had never met before today, was offering her a future. She could have refused out of pride or fear, but she remembered what Miss Natasha had taught her about accepting kindness with gratitude. Yes, Amara said, tears streaming down her face. Please. I would love that. Thank you so much. Julian pulled her into a hug. This tiny girl who had crashed his wedding and exposed his fiancée's lies had somehow become the most important person in his life in the span of a few hours. We're going to be okay, Julian promised. Both of us. We're going to figure this out together. That night, Amara slept in a real bed for the first time in months. The sheets were soft. The pillow was fluffy. She felt clean and warm and safe. Before she fell asleep, she whispered a prayer. Thank you, Grandma Rose. Thank you for teaching me to be brave. And please watch over Miss Natasha. She deserves good things. She deserves someone to save her the way she saved me. In the sweet second bedroom, Julian sat awake, staring at his phone. He had looked up Natasha's last known address and phone number. Both were disconnected. She had moved, probably couldn't afford her old place after he fired her. He thought about everything he had lost by believing Elena's lies. He thought about Natasha's face when he had accused her of betrayal, the way her voice had shaken when she insisted she was innocent, the dignity with which she had walked out of his office even though he was destroying her. I'm so sorry, Natasha, he whispered into the empty room. I should have believed you. I should have trusted you. I should have seen the truth. Tomorrow he would find her. Tomorrow he would start making things right. Tomorrow he would begin building the life he should have had all along. But tonight, he would be grateful for one small, brave girl who risked everything to save a stranger from his own blindness. Julian spent the next morning making calls. His lawyer began the adoption paperwork for Amara. His accountant set up a trust fund to ensure she would always be provided for. His assistant found a child psychologist who specialized in trauma to help Amara process everything she had been through. But Julian's mind was somewhere else. He needed to find Natasha. He started with his HR department. They had her last known address and phone number on file, but both were disconnected, just as he expected. He tried calling, but the number went straight to a recording saying it was no longer in service. He drove to the address on file, a nice apartment building in a decent neighborhood. The landlord told him Natasha had moved out 4 months ago, unable to afford the rent. He didn't have a forwarding address. Julian returned to his office, frustrated. Natasha had disappeared from his world completely. She had left no trace, no way to find her. Then he remembered what Amara had said. She works at the 5th Street Diner. It was almost noon. Julian left Amara with his housekeeper, a kind older woman named Mrs. Chin, who immediately took to the little girl. Then he drove across town to 5th Street. The diner was exactly what he expected. Old, worn, but clean. The kind of place where working people came for cheap coffee and honest food. A bell rang when Julian walked in. Several customers looked up, noting his expensive coat and watch. He didn't belong here and everyone knew it. Sit anywhere, a waitress called from behind the counter. She was older, with tired eyes and a friendly smile. Julian scanned the room. He didn't see Natasha. His heart sank. Excuse me, Julian said, approaching the counter. Does Natasha Pierce work here? The waitress's expression shifted to something guarded. Who's asking? My name is Julian Cross. I'm a friend. I need to speak with her. The waitress studied him carefully. After a moment she said, She's in the back on her break. Let me see if she wants to talk to you. The waitress disappeared through a door marked Employees Only. Julian waited, his pulse racing. Would Natasha even agree to see him after what he did? 5 minutes passed. Then the door opened and Natasha stepped out. Julian's breath caught. She looked different. Thinner, like she hadn't been eating enough. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. She wore the diner's bright red uniform, the kind of cheap polyester that probably felt awful after a long shift. But she was still beautiful. Still Natasha. Their eyes met across the diner. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Natasha walked toward him, her expression carefully neutral. She stopped a few feet away, maintaining distance. "Julian," she said, and her voice was exactly as he remembered it. Warm, intelligent, carefully controlled. "Natasha." His voice came out rougher than he intended. "Can we talk?" "We're talking now. In private, please. I need to explain something. I need to apologize." Natasha glanced at the clock. "My break is almost over. Please. Just give me 15 minutes. That's all I'm asking." She hesitated. The smart thing would be to refuse, to send him away, to protect herself from more pain. But something in his eyes looked desperate, almost broken, and despite everything, Natasha's kind heart wouldn't let her turn away. 15 minutes, she agreed. "There's a park across the street." They walked to the small park in silence. It wasn't much, just a few benches and some struggling trees, but it was private enough. They sat down, maintaining careful space between them. Julian didn't know where to start. How do you apologize for destroying someone's life based on lies? "The wedding didn't happen," he said finally. "I heard something about that on the news. They said the bride left before the ceremony finished. She ran because she was exposed. By an 8-year-old girl named Amara." Natasha's head snapped up. "Amara? Is she okay? What happened? You know her?" "Of course I know her. She's been homeless for 3 months. I give her dinner every night. She's the sweetest, bravest child." Natasha's protective instincts flared. "What did you do to her?" "Nothing bad, I promise. She saved me, Natasha. She crashed my wedding and played a recording she had made of Elena. Elena was with a friend, bragging about how she manipulated me, how she planned to marry me for money and divorce me 6 months later to take half of everything." Natasha's eyes widened. "What?" "It gets worse. In the recording, Elena admitted she set you up. She hacked your email. She sent those messages to make it look like you were betraying me. She did it because she saw you as a threat to her plan." The words hung in the air between them. Natasha sat very still, processing. "You were innocent," Julian continued, his voice breaking. "You told me you were innocent and I didn't believe you. I threw you out of my life because I was too blind to see the truth. And I'm so sorry, Natasha. I'm so incredibly sorry." Natasha looked away, blinking back tears. For 6 months she had carried the weight of being falsely accused. She had lost her job, her reputation, her financial security, and the man she secretly loved, all because of lies. And now he was telling her she had been right all along. "I tried to tell you," she said quietly. "I begged you to believe me. I know. I failed you. I failed myself. I let someone poison my mind against you, and I'll regret that for the rest of my life. Why are you telling me this now? Because you deserve to know the truth. Because I owe you an apology that words can't fully express. Because..." Julian paused, gathering courage. "Because Amara told me what you've been doing for her. How you've been feeding her, giving her hope, showing her kindness even though you're struggling yourself. She told me you're working 2 jobs. She told me about your mother. Natasha, I'm so sorry about your mom." The tears Natasha had been holding back started to fall. "She died 4 months ago. I should have been there. If I hadn't been such a fool, I would have been there for you." "You were busy planning your wedding," Natasha said, and there was no bitterness in her voice, only sadness. "I was busy making the biggest mistake of my life." Julian shifted closer, not touching her but near enough that she could feel his presence. "Natasha, I know I have no right to ask anything of you. I know I destroyed what we had. But I want to make things right. Tell me what you need. Tell me how I can help." "I don't need your charity, Julian." "It's not charity. It's justice. You lost your job because of a lie. You lost income, opportunities, your reputation. Let me fix that." "How? By giving me money? That doesn't fix what happened." "No, you're right. It doesn't. But maybe it's a start." Julian took a breath. "I want to offer you your old job back. Same position, executive assistant, but with a significant raise and a formal apology to everyone in the company about what really happened. I want to clear your name completely." Natasha stared at him. "You're serious?" "Completely serious. I need someone I can trust, Someone brilliant and capable. That's always been you. But more than that, I need to do the right thing. And the right thing is giving you back what was taken from you. For the first time since seeing Julian in the diner, Natasha allowed herself to feel hope. Her current situation was unsustainable. Working 2 minimum-wage jobs just to afford a tiny apartment in a bad neighborhood, barely sleeping, no time for herself. The job Julian was offering would change everything. But could she trust him again? Could she work with him after he had hurt her so badly? I need time to think about it, Natasha said. Of course. Take all the time you need. But before you decide, I want you to know something else. I'm adopting Amara. The paperwork is already in progress. She's going to have a real home, a real family. She'll never be alone again. Natasha's face lit up with genuine joy. Really? Oh, Julian, that's wonderful. She deserves that so much. She asked about you. She wants to see you. Would that be okay? Yes, of course. How about dinner tomorrow night? You, me, and Amara. No pressure about the job offer. Just dinner. Natasha wiped her tears and managed a small smile. Okay. Dinner. Thank you. Julian stood to leave, then paused. Natasha, for what it's worth, I never stopped thinking about you. Even when I was with Elena, even when I was convinced you had betrayed me, there was this part of me that knew something was wrong. I should have listened to that part. I should have trusted my gut. I should have trusted you. He walked away, leaving Natasha alone on the park bench. She sat there for a long time after he left, her mind spinning. Julian had apologized. He had admitted he was wrong. He had offered to make things right. And most importantly, he was giving Amara the home she desperately needed. Could Natasha forgive him? Could she go back to working side by side with the man she had loved, the man who had broken her heart? She didn't know yet. But for the first time in 6 months, Natasha felt like maybe, just maybe, better days really were coming. Before you go, let me ask you something. Have you ever had someone come back into your life and ask for a second chance? Did you give it to them? I'm curious to hear your stories. Drop a comment below and don't forget to subscribe for more chapters. Your support means everything. The next evening, Julian picked up Natasha in his car. She wore a green dress she hadn't worn in months, one of the bright pieces from her old life. She had spent an hour getting ready, telling herself it was just dinner, nothing more. But when Julian saw her, the look in his eyes told a different story. You look beautiful, he said simply. Thank you. Natasha slid into the passenger seat, her heart beating faster than it should. They drove to a family-style Italian restaurant, the kind of place with checkered tablecloths and breadsticks in baskets. It wasn't fancy, but it was warm and welcoming. Perfect for Amara's first real dinner out. Amara was waiting at a corner table with Mrs. Chen, Julian's housekeeper. When she saw Natasha, the little girl's face exploded with joy. Miss Natasha. Amara jumped up and ran to her, throwing her arms around Natasha's waist. Natasha hugged her back, tears already forming. Look at you. Clean clothes, brushed hair. You look wonderful, sweetheart. Julian bought me all new stuff. And I have my own room now. With a bed that's so soft and books and everything. Amara pulled back, her eyes shining. And he's going to adopt me. For real. I heard. I'm so happy for you. They sat down together. Mrs. Chin excused herself, giving them privacy. For a moment, the three of them just looked at each other. A billionaire who had almost made a terrible mistake, a woman who had lost everything and kept her kindness anyway, and a little girl who had saved them both. This feels nice, Amara said. Like a family. Julian and Natasha exchanged glances. Neither of them corrected her, though neither confirmed it either. They ordered dinner. Amara got spaghetti and meatballs and ate with the enthusiasm of someone who finally felt safe enough to enjoy food. Between bites, she told Natasha everything that had happened at the wedding. I was so scared, Amara admitted. Everyone was staring at me like I was crazy. But Julian believed me. He listened. You were so brave, Natasha said. Braver than most adults would have been. You taught me that. You said to stand up for what's right even when it's scary. Natasha's throat tightened. Your grandma taught you that, sweetheart. I just reminded you. After dinner, Amara started yawning. Mrs. Chin returned to take her home and put her to bed. Amara hugged both Julian and Natasha goodnight. See you soon, Miss Natasha? Amara asked hopefully. See you soon, Natasha promised. When Amara left, Julian and Natasha sat across from each other in the suddenly quiet restaurant. The easy conversation they had maintained during dinner faded, leaving them with the heavy topics they had been avoiding. Walk with me? Julian asked. They left the restaurant and walked through the neighborhood. It was a cool spring evening, the air carrying the scent of flowers beginning to bloom. I meant what I said yesterday, Julian began. About the job offer. But I understand if you don't want to work with me again. I understand if you can't trust me anymore. It's not about trust, Natasha said carefully. It's about whether I can handle being that close to you again. What do you mean? Natasha stopped walking. They were standing under a street light, the glow casting soft shadows on their faces. She had kept this secret for so long, but suddenly she was tired of hiding. I had feelings for you, Julian. When I worked for you. More than just professional respect. I thought I hid it well, but looking back, I wonder if Elena saw it. If that's why she targeted me. Julian's eyes widened. You had feelings for me? Yes. But you were my boss. There were rules, boundaries. I would never have crossed that line. So I kept it to myself and tried to be professional. Natasha's voice shook slightly. And then when you fired me, when you believed those lies about me, it didn't just hurt because I lost my job. It hurt because the person I cared about thought the worst of me. Julian reached for her hand. She let him take it. I had feelings for you too, he confessed. From the moment you walked into that office in a bright red blazer and told me my business strategy needed work. You were fearless and smart and you made me laugh. Every day working with you felt like the best part of my day. Then why did you believe her over me? Because I'm an idiot. Because Elena played on my insecurities. She made me feel like you were too good for me, that you would never see me as anything more than a boss, that I was imagining the connection between us. And when she showed me that evidence, she framed it as proof that I had been right to keep my distance, that you had never cared at all. Natasha's eyes filled with tears. I cared. I cared so much it hurt. I know that now. I'm so sorry, Natasha. For all of it. For being blind. For not fighting for you. For choosing someone who lied over someone who had always been honest with me. They stood there under the streetlight, hands clasped, both crying now. If I come back to work for you, Natasha said slowly, things will be different. We can't go back to the way it was. I know. And I'm not asking for that. I'm asking for a chance to prove I've learned from my mistakes. I'm asking for the opportunity to show you that I'm worthy of your trust again, even if it takes years. What if I can't forgive you? Then I'll accept that. But I'm still going to try. Because you deserve everything good, Natasha. You deserve someone fighting for you the way you fought for others. Natasha looked at him, this man who had broken her heart and was now trying to piece it back together. She thought about Amara and how the little girl needed stability, needed people in her life who could work together. She thought about her current situation, how exhausted she was, how unsustainable her life had become. And she thought about what she had told Amara, better days are coming. Maybe it was time to let them arrive. Okay, Natasha said. I'll take the job. But I have conditions. Anything. First, I want a formal written apology sent to everyone at the company, explaining what really happened. I want my name completely cleared. Done. Second, I want the salary to reflect my actual value, not just what you think is fair compensation for firing me. If I'm going to be your executive assistant again, I want to be paid what that position is worth. Absolutely. Name your price. Third, we keep things professional. No blurred lines. No confusion. We work together, we rebuild trust, but we do it with clear boundaries. Julian nodded, though something in his eyes looked sad. I understand. Professional boundaries. I agree. And fourth, I want to be part of Amara's life. Not just as your employee but as someone who cares about her. She's been through so much. She needs all the support she can get. I was hoping you'd say that. She adores you. They started walking again, still holding hands though neither acknowledged it. When do you want me to start? Natasha asked. Whenever you're ready. Tomorrow, next week, next month. You set the timeline. I need to give my current job's notice. 2 weeks. 2 weeks is perfect. That gives me time to get your office set up and make the announcement to the staff. They walked in comfortable silence for a while. The neighborhood was quiet, the streets empty. Can I ask you something? Julian said eventually. Sure. When did you know? When did you realize you had feelings for me? Natasha smiled, remembering. Do you remember the Nakamoto deal? When we were negotiating for 3 days straight, barely sleeping, living on coffee and determination. I remember. On the second night, around 2 in the morning, you made a joke about how coffee was the only relationship you needed because it never let you down. And I remember thinking that if I ever got the chance, I would prove you wrong. That someone could be more reliable than coffee, more comforting, more essential. She laughed softly. That's when I knew I was in trouble. Julian stopped walking. He turned to face her fully, his expression intense. "I'm going to prove you right," he said. "I'm going to show you that someone can be all those things. That I can be all those things. Not now because you need space and time. But someday, Natasha. Someday I'm going to prove I'm worth a second chance." Natasha's heart raced. She should pull her hand away. She should reinforce those boundaries she had just established. But she couldn't seem to move. "Just focus on being a good father to Amara," Natasha said softly. "That's what matters most right now. I can do both. I can be a good father and work on earning your trust back. We'll see." But as Julian drove her home to her tiny apartment, and as Natasha lay in bed that night replaying their conversation, both of them were thinking the same thing. Maybe second chances were possible. Maybe broken things could be repaired. Maybe love was patient enough to wait for healing. And maybe, just maybe, this story was far from over. 2 weeks later, Natasha walked through the doors of Julian's company for the first time in 6 months. She wore a royal blue suit, her hair styled professionally, her head held high. The reception desk did a double take when they saw her. "Miss Pierce," the receptionist said, surprised. "Welcome back." "Thank you. It's good to be back." Word had already spread through the company. Julian had sent the promised letter of apology to every employee, explaining Elena's scheme and Natasha's innocence. He had been thorough and honest, holding nothing back. His reputation had taken a hit for being so easily fooled, but he didn't care. What mattered was clearing Natasha's name. When she stepped off the elevator onto the executive floor, several former colleagues approached her, apologizing, welcoming her back. Natasha accepted their words graciously, though she could see the curiosity in their eyes. They wanted to know what the dynamic would be between her and Julian now. Honestly, she wanted to know too. Julian's office was exactly as she remembered. Floor-to-ceiling windows, modern furniture, organized chaos. But her new office, right next to his, was completely transformed. He had furnished it with a standing desk, ergonomic chair, and bright artwork on the walls. Fresh flowers sat on her desk, red roses. There was a note, "Welcome home, J." Natasha touched the flowers gently, feeling emotions she wasn't ready to name. "Do you like it?" She turned. Julian stood in the doorway, wearing a maroon suit that made him look both professional and slightly less intimidating. "It's perfect," Natasha said. "Thank you. I wanted you to feel comfortable. If there's anything you want to change, just say the word. It's really perfect. I mean it." They stood there, the air between them charged with everything unsaid. Then Julian cleared his throat. "We have a management meeting in an hour. Want to grab coffee and go over the agenda?" "Sure. Just like old times." "Better than old times," Julian corrected. "This time I know what I have." Working together again was both easy and difficult. The professional chemistry was still there, undeniable. They fell back into their rhythm quickly. Natasha anticipating Julian's needs, Julian trusting her judgment, both of them working as a seamless team. But there was also the awareness, the tension, the feelings they were both trying to keep professional. After work that first day, Julian invited Natasha to have dinner with him and Amara. It became a routine. 3 or 4 nights a week they would eat together, the three of them, like the family Amara had hoped for. Amara thrived. She started at a good school, made friends, joined an art class. Her smile came easier. Her nightmares grew less frequent. The trauma of homelessness was still there, but healing was happening. And she loved having both Julian and Natasha in her life. "Are you going to marry Miss Natasha?" Amara asked Julian one night after Natasha had left. Julian nearly dropped the dish he was washing. "What makes you ask that?" "You look at her the way the prince looks at the princess in my storybooks." "It's complicated, sweetheart." "Why? You like her. She likes you. You're both single. What's complicated?" "I heard her before. She's not sure she can trust me again. I have to be patient and prove I've changed." Amara considered this. "You have changed. You're nicer now. Before you were about to marry that mean lady. Now you're trying to be good." "I'm trying," Julian agreed. "But trust takes time to rebuild." "Then we should show her," Amara said with the confidence of an 8-year-old who believed in happy endings. "We should show her every day that we're good people who love her." Julian hugged his daughter tight. "When did you get so wise?" "Miss Natasha taught me. She says love is action, not just words." And so they showed her. Julian made sure Natasha took lunch breaks and left work at reasonable hours. He valued her input in meetings and gave her credit publicly. He respected her boundaries but left small signs that he was thinking of her. Her favorite coffee waiting on her desk in the mornings, notes of encouragement before big presentations, flowers on particularly hard days. Natasha noticed all of it. How could she not? But she was careful with her heart. She had been broken before. She needed to be sure this time. Then, 3 months after returning to work, Natasha got sick. Nothing serious, just a bad flu that left her feverish and weak. She called out of work, something she rarely did. That evening there was a knock on her apartment door. When Natasha opened it, still in her pajamas and feeling miserable, Julian stood there with grocery bags. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice hoarse. "You're sick. I brought soup, medicine, juice, and tissues." He held up the bags. "Can I come in?" Natasha should have said no. Should have maintained those boundaries. But she felt awful and he looked genuinely concerned, so she stepped aside. Julian set about taking care of her with the same efficiency he brought to business deals. He made soup, brought her medicine, fluffed her pillows, and queued up a comfort movie on her TV. "You don't have to do this," Natasha said, but her protest was weak. "I know. I want to." He sat with her while she ate soup, telling her funny stories about Amara's adventures at school. He made sure she took her medicine. He checked her fever with a hand to her forehead, his touch gentle. "Why are you really here, Julian?" Natasha asked. "You could have sent Mrs. Chen or had food delivered. Because when you care about someone, you show up. You sit with them when they're sick. You make sure they're okay. You don't delegate that to someone else." Natasha's eyes filled with tears. Not from the illness, but from the tenderness in his voice. "I'm scared," she admitted. "I'm scared to trust you again. I'm scared you'll change your mind or get bored or find someone better." Julian took her hand. "I'm scared too. I'm scared I'll mess this up. I'm scared I don't deserve a second chance. But Natasha, I'm more scared of not trying. Of letting fear keep me from the person who makes me want to be better." "What are we doing?" Natasha whispered. "What is this? I think we're falling in love. Or maybe we've been in love all along, and we're just finally brave enough to admit it." Natasha looked at him, this man who had broken her heart and was now carefully, patiently putting it back together. She thought about the past 3 months, watching him be a father to Amara, seeing how he had changed, how he valued her, how he showed up every single day. "I'm not ready yet," she said. "But I'm getting there. I'll wait. As long as it takes." Julian stayed until Natasha fell asleep on the couch. He covered her with a blanket, left more medicine and water on the coffee table, and locked her door on his way out. The next morning, Natasha woke to find a text from him. "How are you feeling? Amara and I are worried about you. Take today off too if you need it. Your health matters more than work." Natasha smiled, her heart warming in a way that had nothing to do with fever. Maybe, she thought, maybe love really was action. Maybe it was showing up with soup. Maybe it was respecting boundaries while making your feelings clear. Maybe it was being patient enough to let trust rebuild slowly, carefully, honestly. And maybe she was ready to believe in second chances after all. The change happened gradually, like seasons shifting. One day Natasha realized she was laughing more. She was sleeping better. She was looking forward to work not because of the job itself, but because of who she would see there. She was falling in love with Julian Cross all over again. Except this time it felt different. Deeper. Real. It had been 5 months since she returned to work. 5 months of rebuilding trust. 5 months of watching Julian be an incredible father to Amara. 5 months of small moments that added up to something significant. One evening, Julian took both Natasha and Amara to a street fair in their neighborhood. They walked through the stalls, eating cotton candy and looking at handmade crafts. Amara ran ahead, her bright green jacket making her easy to spot. "She's so happy," Natasha said, watching the little girl laugh at a puppet show. "Because of you," Julian said. "You saved her before I even knew she existed. You gave her hope when she had nothing. I just gave her sandwiches. You gave her kindness. In her darkest moment, you showed her that good people still exist. That's not nothing, Natasha. That's everything." They watched Amara together, standing close enough that their shoulders touched. "Can I tell you something?" Julian said quietly. "Always. I used to think I knew what love was. I thought it was attraction and compatibility and wanting to spend time with someone. But I was wrong." He turned to look at Natasha fully. "Love is this. Standing next to someone who's been through hell and choosing to believe in better days. It's trusting someone even when trust has been broken before. It's showing up every day not because you have to, but because you can't imagine not showing up." Natasha's breath caught. "Julian, I love you," he said simply. "I've loved you for a long time. I was just too stupid to recognize it before. But I recognize it now. I see you, Natasha. I see your strength and your kindness and your incredible heart. And I love all of it. I love all of you. Tears streamed down Natasha's face. For 6 months she had protected her heart. She had built walls. She had kept him at arm's length, afraid of being hurt again. But standing here watching Amara play, feeling Julian's presence beside her, she realized something. She had already let him back in. Somewhere along the way, through the daily acts of care and the patient rebuilding of trust, her heart had opened again. I love you too, Natasha whispered. I think I never stopped. I was just scared. Julian cupped her face gently, his thumb wiping away her tears. Can I kiss you? Yes. He kissed her softly, carefully, like she was precious. And in that moment, surrounded by the noise and lights of the street fair, with Amara's laughter carrying on the breeze, everything felt right. When they pulled apart, Amara was standing in front of them, grinning from ear to ear. I knew it, the little girl said triumphantly. I told you that you loved each other. Julian and Natasha laughed and Amara hugged them both. Does this mean we're a real family now? Amara asked hopefully. Julian looked at Natasha, a question in his eyes. She nodded. Yes, sweetheart, Julian said. We're a real family. That night, after they dropped Amara at home with Mrs. Chin, Julian drove Natasha back to her apartment. They sat in the car, neither wanting the evening to end. I have something to ask you, Julian said. And you can say no. I'll understand if you say no. What is it? Move in with us. Not because it's practical or convenient, but because I want to wake up every morning knowing you're there. I want Amara to have you in her life every day, not just a few nights a week. I want to build a life with you, Natasha. A real life. A family. Natasha's heart raced. It was fast. Too fast maybe. They had only admitted their feelings tonight. But when she thought about going back to her tiny apartment alone, when she thought about continuing to live separately from the two people who had become her world, it felt wrong. Yes, she said. Yes, I'll move in with you. Julian's smile could have lit up the entire city. He kissed her again, deeper this time, and Natasha felt herself melting into him. I have one more question, Julian said when they finally pulled apart. And this one is even bigger. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small velvet box. Natasha's eyes went wide. I know it's fast, Julian said. I know we just got back together. But Natasha, I wasted 6 months of our lives because I was blind and stupid. I don't want to waste any more time. I know what I want. I want you. I want forever with you. He opened the box. Inside was a beautiful sapphire ring, the deep blue stone catching the streetlight. I chose sapphire because you always wear blue. You said life is too short for boring colors, and you're right. You bring color into every day, into every room, into my entire life. Julian took a shaky breath. Natasha Pierce, will you marry me? Natasha couldn't speak. She could only nod, tears streaming down her face. Is that a yes? Julian asked, hope and fear mixing in his voice. Yes, Natasha finally managed. Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. Julian slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, like it had been made just for her. They sat in the car, holding each other, crying and laughing and planning their future. After everything they had been through, all the pain and betrayal and loss, they had found their way back to each other. No, Natasha thought. Not back. Forward. They were moving forward into something new and better. When should we tell Amara? Natasha asked. Tomorrow. At breakfast. I want to see her face when we tell her you're going to be her mom. Her mom? Natasha repeated, testing the words. They felt right. Perfect. We'll do it right this time, Julian promised. Small wedding, just the people we love. No cathedral, no hundreds of guests. Just us and Amara and the people who matter. That sounds perfect. They finally said goodnight, though it took another 20 minutes of kissing and planning before they could actually part. When Natasha finally walked into her apartment, she stared at the ring on her finger in wonder. This wasn't how she thought her life would go. 6 months ago she had been broken, alone, surviving on scraps and willpower. Now she was engaged to the man she loved, about to become a mother to a little girl who needed her, about to start a life that felt like a dream. But it wasn't a dream. It was real. It was messy and complicated and built on the ashes of past mistakes, but it was real. And as Natasha packed her things that night, preparing to move into the home she would share with Julian and Amara, she whispered a thank you to Grandma Rose, to her own mother, to all the forces in the universe that had led her here. Better days did come, she said softly. Just like I promised Amara. Better days came. 6 months later, on a crisp autumn morning, Natasha Pierce became Natasha Cross in a small ceremony in Julian's backyard. There were only 20 guests. Close friends, Julian's family, a few key employees from the company. No cathedral. No elaborate production. Just simple truth and genuine love. Amara was the flower girl, wearing a beautiful emerald green dress that she had picked out herself. She took her role very seriously, walking down the makeshift aisle with careful steps, scattering rose petals with precision. Natasha wore a flowing royal blue gown that caught the sunlight. When Julian saw her, his eyes filled with tears. She was radiant, glowing with happiness, and he couldn't believe how lucky he was. The vows they exchanged were simple but profound. "I promise to listen to you," Julian said, his voice thick with emotion. "To trust you even when things get complicated. To show up every day not because I have to, but because loving you is the easiest thing I've ever done. I promise to be the partner you deserve, the father Amara needs, and the man who never takes you for granted again." Natasha's turn. "I promise to be honest with you, to challenge you when you need it, to support you when things get hard. I promise to love you not just in the easy moments but in the difficult ones too. I promise to build a life with you that's based on truth, trust, and the kind of love that grows stronger every day." When the officiant pronounced them married, Julian and Natasha kissed while Amara cheered louder than anyone else. The reception was held in the same backyard, under strings of lights and autumn leaves. There was dancing and laughter and food made by Julian's personal chef. But the best moment came when the three of them, Julian, Natasha, and Amara, stood together for a family photo. "We're really a family now," Amara said, squeezing both their hands. "We were always a family," Natasha corrected gently. "From the moment we chose to love each other." After the reception, after the guests left and the cleanup was done, the three of them sat in their living room. Amara was between her parents on the couch, tired but happy. "Tell me the story again," Amara said, a request she made often. "Which story?" Julian asked, though he knew exactly which one. "How I saved you both." Natasha smiled. "Once upon a time, there was a very brave little girl who saw a terrible wrong and decided to make it right. She didn't have much. She didn't have power or money or anyone to help her. But she had courage and she had proof of the truth. And she crashed a wedding," Amara added with glee. "She crashed a wedding," Julian confirmed. "And in doing so, she saved a very foolish man from making the biggest mistake of his life." "And then what happened?" Amara prompted, even though she knew every word. "The foolish man realized he had been wrong about everything. So he went looking for the woman he should have trusted all along. And when he found her, he spent every day proving he was sorry and showing her she could trust him again. And the woman forgave him," Natasha continued, "because she believed in second chances. She believed that people could change, that broken things could be fixed, and that love was patient enough to wait for healing. And then they all lived happily ever after," Amara finished. "The end." "Not the end," Julian corrected. "The beginning. This is our beginning." That night, after Amara was asleep in her room, walls decorated with art she had made at school, Julian and Natasha stood in their bedroom, looking out the window at their neighborhood. "Do you ever think about how different things could have been?" Natasha asked. "All the time. If Amara hadn't found that phone. If she hadn't been brave enough to crash the wedding. If you hadn't been kind enough to feed a homeless child. Everything could have gone so wrong. But it didn't. No. It went exactly right." Julian wrapped his arms around Natasha from behind, pulling her close. "We got our happy ending. This isn't an ending, remember? You said this is our beginning." "You're right. So what should we do with our beginning?" Natasha turned in his arms, looking up at him. "We love each other. We raise our daughter. We build a life that's honest and kind and full of color. We show up for each other every single day." "That sounds perfect." They kissed, and outside their window the world kept turning. But inside their home, in this moment, everything was exactly as it should be. Amara's adoption was finalized a week after the wedding. In the courthouse, with Natasha and Julian on either side of her, the judge made it official. Amara Cross was now legally their daughter. "How does it feel to have a family?" the judge asked Amara with a kind smile. Amara thought about her grandmother, who had loved her but was gone. She thought about the months on the street, cold and scared. She thought about Miss Natasha's kindness and Julian's willingness to believe her and the home they had built together. "It feels like hope," Amara said. "It feels like all the bad things that happened were just getting me ready for all the good things that were coming." The judge's eyes filled with tears. "That's beautiful, sweetheart. And very wise." That night, they celebrated with Amara's favorite dinner, pizza and ice cream. Nothing fancy. Nothing expensive. Just a family together, grateful for each other. I want to do something, Amara announced between bites of pepperoni pizza. What's that? Julian asked. I want to help other kids like me. Kids who are homeless and scared. I want to make sure they know someone cares. Natasha's heart swelled with pride. That's a wonderful idea, sweetheart. How do you want to help? Maybe we could go to the diner where you used to work. We could bring food and blankets and talk to kids. We could tell them not to give up hope. Julian and Natasha exchanged glances. Their 8-year-old daughter, who had been through more than most children could imagine, wanted to spend her energy helping others. We'll do it, Julian said. This weekend. We'll make care packages and we'll go to the diner, and we'll help as many kids as we can. And they did. Every weekend after that, the Cross family, all three of them, went to different shelters and neighborhoods, bringing food, clothes, and most importantly, hope. Amara would tell her story to other homeless children. She would tell them about Grandma Rose's lessons on being brave. She would tell them about Miss Natasha's kindness. She would tell them about Julian's willingness to believe a stranger. Don't give up, Amara would say. I know it's hard. I know you're scared. But better days are coming. Someone will see you. Someone will care. You just have to hold on long enough to let them find you. And because Amara was living proof of her own words, the children believed her. 3 years passed. Amara grew into a confident, compassionate 11-year-old. Julian's company continued to thrive, with Natasha as his invaluable partner both at work and at home. They had started a foundation in Grandma Rose's name, providing resources and support for homeless children. Life wasn't perfect. There were hard days and disagreements and challenges. But they faced everything together with honesty and love and the commitment they had made to each other. One evening, as they sat together in their living room, Amara doing homework, Julian reading a business proposal, and Natasha sketching designs for a new community center, Amara looked up from her math problems. I'm writing an essay for school, she said. About heroes. Can I read it to you? Of course, Natasha said. Amara cleared her throat and began reading. People think heroes are strong and powerful, but I think real heroes are people who choose kindness when the world is cruel. My first hero was my Grandma Rose, who taught me to be brave even when I was scared. My second hero is my mom, Natasha, who gave food to a homeless child even though she was struggling herself. My third hero is my dad, Julian, who believed a dirty little girl with a crazy story instead of listening to everyone who said I was lying. But the real lesson I learned is that everyone can be a hero. You don't need superpowers or special abilities. You just need to care about people. You just need to stand up for what's right even when it's hard. You just need to believe that kindness matters. My family proved that broken things can be fixed, that lost things can be found, and that love can heal almost anything. We proved that hope is real and that better days really do come. That's what makes someone a hero. Not strength or power, but choosing love over fear, every single time. When Amara finished reading, the room was silent. Both Julian and Natasha were crying. That's beautiful, sweetheart, Natasha managed to say. Do you think I'll get a good grade? Amara asked, slightly worried. I think, Julian said, pulling both his wife and daughter into a hug, that you've already earned the best grade possible. You've learned what really matters. That's worth more than any it could ever be. They sat there together, the family that shouldn't have existed. The billionaire who almost married a con artist. The executive assistant who was falsely accused and fired. The homeless girl who crashed a wedding with 6 seconds of audio. Against all odds, they had found each other. Against all logic, they had built something beautiful from the broken pieces of their past. And every single day they chose to love each other. They chose kindness. They chose hope. They chose to believe in better days. Because that's what families do. That's what love does. It turns impossible situations into incredible stories. It turns strangers into family. It turns endings into beginnings. This wasn't how any of them planned their lives would go. But looking at each other in that moment, surrounded by love and laughter and the comfort of home, all three of them knew one thing with absolute certainty. This was exactly where they were meant to be. Together. A family. Living proof that sometimes, the most unexpected moments lead to the most beautiful outcomes. Sometimes, 6 seconds of truth really can change everything.